University of Lagos has spoken about food insecurity, talked about poverty and all that, but we are saying, who is going to have that organization except us? And so we must be the solution providers, we must do what we are doing, right? So we dictate what we are doing, strengthen what we are doing, we must also broaden to other areas so that we don't stay in silos, but because development agenda, because otherwise we will continue to have a paradox where we have graduates, postgraduates, student mobility, professors going up on the academic ladder, but our society is remaining unchanged. And so there's a challenge to us going from here is that every dollar that we put, every shilling, every naira, can it count for something? So that the other generations that will come after us will count as worthy to have spent time and effort for changing the tide of development on our continent.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the passion that you want to discuss. Great. You said that universities are the think tanks for their countries. That's the government sees you as a think tank.
To be safe, I just Kenya as an example. I think they do, and I think they don't do. I remember one time when we were looking for, why I'm saying that is, you know, you look at the funding, and we have a fund that is normally implemented by the parliamentarians that way. You take that money, they will stop the business of parliament, and the government will come to a stop still. Now they have committed themselves to pay 2% of their GDP to support research. As we speak, they are 0.48. Nobody can cover value. So yes and no. They see the value because when there was COVID, they asked us, what can we do? And the University of Nairobi, with the support of other partners, came together to establish a center for epidemiological modeling and analysis that was able to advise the government on how to behave. When there's food and nutrition security, there's a challenge, we are able to do the same. Currently, we are also implementing a project where we are talking about climate resilient infrastructure. So yes, they value us, but they also don't value us, because when it comes to putting your money where your mouth is, that is where we are a little bit behind from government. So they would rather not be, you know, they say we are law-abiding citizens of government, but they will not agree to fund research, but they will fund the Constituency Development Fund because it is by politicians who are more powerful and more, and they control the budget anyway. So if you look at the funding formulas that they put there, they are student-centered. It doesn't matter whether you are a professor and you have a huge budget, nobody will care. Or rather, they care just a little bit. But yes, there's opportunity for us to continuously dialogue, because these are our colleagues. Many of them are professors. So continuously dialoguing around what is important for our continent, because otherwise the Book of Lamentations will continue to be written about Africa, but we are saying we are here to write a different script for our continent.
Thank you very much. Nelson, 10 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Ernest. Actually, when you asked me to stand on this podium and address this audience, I was not prepared, but I thought that I would come and speak, share some of the experience about funding and the research in Africa, the challenges that we face. So probably I'll be the last speaker. I'd like to share the funding and the relevance of the research that we do in our countries. Are these funding aligned to the national research agenda? If you get funds for research from Danida, from CEDA, and the likes, are really these funds aiming at solving our own problems? That's a challenge. In the past 5 years, I tell the story of Dar es Salaam. I come from the University of Dar es Salaam, has been in trouble funding our researchers and we established a fund known as a Competitive Research Fund that is aiming actually at looking at the problems that we really face and we want to solve them. And the fund for the first year, in the first 5 years, the equivalent to 1.24 million USD. And the impact of that, we started seeing it at the promotion of our academic staff. We had a massive promotion this year alone of our staffs because they are doing research now, and this is not, the fund is not supporting them to do research alone, but getting papers and getting promoted, so they are like internally being motivated. Additionally, they do research policy, that is policy briefs, which are informing the government and the university on the problems that we face and how they should be solved. And now, if you go back to the history of the funding of Danida, CEDA and the likes in the past 25 years at the university, been funding for about more than 80% of our funds. But if we convert this small fund that we have set aside for the next 25 years, will be the big funder of our own university. And that's the same scale of the money that is being given. Now, what is this solving? The problems that we have that is aligned with the national agenda of our country. And also, our students, our staff, who are really doing this more research, they do topics of their choice. Because if you get money from the donor, you have to align to the policy and do the research that is actually aligned to the interests of the funder. So you have to respond to their problems and answer their problems. Probably they are not answering the problems that your nation is facing. This is a big problem to many African universities. Now the problem comes on data dissemination. With this meager or little funding, do we compete to send this data to big journals? Because sometimes you don't have big fund, so you don't have a large statistical information to get your data being accepted. But your data actually are relevant to the national agenda. They do answer to most of the problems that you are facing. Some of the funds, for instance, we do like look at the challenges on lack, for instance, of groundwater, water at our compound university. So we use some of the funds to search for water and have the water being supplied at the university. But that's an ongoing research. That's one of the benefits that we are going to get. But when it comes to global ranking, and this fund is also promoting our local journals, global ranking, are we seen globally? That's a big barrier that we are facing, because some of this data that are produced by these small funds won't be published in these big journals, and you won't be able to actually being ranked properly or well ranked by these big agents that are ranking our universities. But they are ranking based on citations without regarding whether these research or outputs have addressed the agenda of the respective nations. Now, that's why some of our colleagues, some of the universities now are rejecting these rankings, which are becoming a barrier to the research outputs in our institutions in Africa, and causing a lot of problems to our researchers. Probably we could adopt this model in our institutions, or probably have better one. I will be glad to share and hear from others what they are also doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very, very much, Nelson. Yeah. Just a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Clearly, as we've seen a significant drop in global funding for research in Africa, you have been innovative and responded by providing from your own resources, grants to your staff who do research.
Yeah.
I heard you say you give around $12,000.
Sorry?
$12,000.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, which is not a small amount for an African university.
Yeah.
For most of this I've seen in other, it's a very large amount, $12,000. You know, I think at University of Ghana you do about 3,000, 4,000. You know,
Okay.
And so the question is, how do you finance it?
How?
How do you finance it? The source of it.
The source is internal funds, because we have some small projects within the, we have malls where we can get funds, internal funds, so that we can do that funding, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so this will be overheads from projects. Does it include student fees and so all those things? Does it include student fees?
Some, yes, we can get some from the fees. Because we get, for instance, from the consultant services, some 75% of that money can fund that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
From consultants.
It's a very impressive thing,
yeah.
And it's something that I hope other sub-Saharan universities will emulate. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to patient audience. If you have a question for any of the 5 panelists, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to call you. Yes. Just before intervention comes on, I want to mention that ARUA is currently being evaluated. The 2 evaluation consultants are here, and one of them is going to speak. I hope he's not going to use this to say African universities should finance everything that they want to do. Where's the microphone? Oh, I've called somebody here already. I'll come to you later.
Thank you, Chair. I'll stand up. Yeah, I've attended many of conferences such as this. And what I've observed is that we are preaching to the choir. We are preaching to the already converted. All of us here know what the problems are. But the key players, 2 key players are not here. I was glad to see policymakers here. But the business sector is not here. Whatever knowledge we generate in universities, we do not have the capacity to propagate it. It is the private sector, the business, which needs to take up those ideas. But if they came here, they'll only spend 5 minutes, they feel like you are wasting their time, they will leave. So this is a challenge. Yes, we can do policy briefs. I have done policy briefs at the highest level, at the AU. You give them to the heads of state. When the meeting ends, all those policy briefs will be left in the room. So we really have a challenge of convincing our policymakers to take up the many brilliant ideas that we have. Thank you, Chair.
My question back to you is, in other parts of the world, let's say, for example, the European Union, and Peter is here, can bear witness. In the European Union, there is a forum or an avenue for universities to make their voices heard. Why can't we establish the same thing in Africa? And you are asking me because I know you are very close to the AU.
Yes. Yeah, I think there are various fora where universities meet and discuss these issues. The challenge is, as I said, we need to have policymakers in our midst, and they must be interested. In fact, my experience that academicians, when they become policymakers, they are the worst supporters of what we do in universities. They are very, very negative. That is my experience. But I agree with you. I need fora, but you have RU Forum, we have ARUA here. These are forums where we meet and discuss, but we also need to have all the players in the innovation systems. Because as long as other players are missing in the national innovation systems of ours, we will not get very far. We will talk and talk forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, thank you. Kwame.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I wanted to make a contribution, a question you asked about how you get policymakers to listen. And I want to be very frank, we are not very good at speaking to policymakers. I have spent quite about the last 10 to 15 years engaging with policymakers. I'll give one example. I worked with the World Bank team to, when Rwanda was moving from 6 to 9 years basic education, to model how they can expand their basic education. We worked with the Minister of Education, Professor Morinzi, at that time. We did all the modeling and everything, and we made one big mistake. We didn't involve the Minister of Finance. So when we presented in a forum, and the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Finance asked us, where do you think the money is going to come from? What are the implications of what you are recommending? We said they should, in order to cut down multi-grade teaching, have more teachers. We model to have more teachers. He said, yes, on paper, having more teachers is good, but we can't fund it. So often we don't talk about the cost of the things we are recommending to government. Then secondly, we also have to find the right language. When I work with with UNESCO as a policy analyst, we had journalists in our team. And some of you may have heard this figure, 260 million children out of school. The journalist told us that we need a number. And I remember I said, why do we need a number? He said, to grab the attention of the policymaker, we need a number. So we thought, well, and that number, if you look at it, UNESCO, we sat down together as a policy analyst. It's not, we had very rigorous, journalists in our team, but it was a good approximation. And some of you may have heard this figure, 264 million, and that's the way we started grabbing the attention. The journalist told us that we need a number. Children out of school, and you get the politicians' attention. He said, to grab the attention of the policymaker, you need a number. So we thought, well, our research, and that number, if you look at it, we sat down together, they will just not listen. Very rigorous, and journalists in our team, it was a good approximation. Some of you may have heard this figure, politicians, the minister, and that's the way they're representing, grabbing the journalists told us that we need a number. It's not that they don't hear you get the politicians' attention. The evidence is that how do we do in our policymaker? You need a number. You have to understand how do you engage with the in the way we test that number. Represent the reason. Look at it, we sat down together, they will just not very rigorous, and journalists, in our team, we managed to get we have heard this figure, politicians, the minister, and that's the way they're represented at the steering. The journalists told us, the ministry, the number of advisors, you get the politicians' attention. Outside, evidence that how do we do in our government, we need to understand how do you engage with the so we have to understand that number represent the reason we sat down together, they will just not very rigorous, and in our team, we say that managed to represent our politicians never stops anywhere. That's the way they're represented at the steering. The journalists told us, the ministry, the number of advisors, you get the politicians' attention. Outside,
thank you very much.
Any other? How do you engage with the so we have to understand that number represent the reason we sat down together, they will just not very rigorous, and in our team, we say that managed to represent our politicians never stops anywhere. That's the way the journalists told us, the ministry, the number of advisors, you get the politicians' attention. Outside,
thank you very much.
Any other? How do you engage with the so we have to understand that number represent the reason we sat down together, they will just not very rigorous, and in our team, we say that managed to represent our politicians never stops anywhere.
it's not a war. Sometimes when
the journalist told that
when it's the war that has paralyzed.
outside
Thank you very much.
present the reason
We are living in a war that is appearing. Now we are getting the power that we are facing only
moving forward. Because all these things you are saying, we've done it before, we tried this thing before. But I don't want us to get to that mood. I don't want us to get to that mood. But one simple thing I would like to say is that there are frightening figures that we have gotten in the last 3 days. I think it was yesterday that someone told us that in the next 50 years, 1 out of 2 persons walking the surface of the earth will be an African. Yes, and we have heard here today, again, that population, the world is, African population will become the world population in the next few years. And this is, to us, is an advantage, but to some people, it's a threat. If slavery, if machines replace slavery, AIE is to replace manpower. Very simple. Because there are parts of the world that have gotten to zero population growth. And how do they replace the population that are doing it now with machine? So people in one part of the world is thinking of the problem that is facing them because of the population growth. We have the population growth. So it's our responsibility to think of how to resolve our problem. They won't solve it for us. They won't solve it for us. But what I want to say is that I want to really appreciate ARUA. I want to really appreciate ARUA. And I want to appreciate the existence of the centers of excellence. In the last few days, we have heard about collaboration, mobility, exchange program. This can only happen through the centers of excellence. The gain we have in the last few years, as demonstrated by our center chair, Professor Fabiloni, is that before, African scholars will talk to the scholars in the global north. But at the advent of ARUA, we know ourselves across Africa. And that's a starting point. It can be a little first step, but it's a step in the right direction. So if ARUA could really invest on the, help us grow the centers of excellence. When we do this collaboration, that the one we've been doing in the last 2 years, the last 3 years, if we can run it for the next 5 years, we'll see more gain. All this ranking and index and all this will become African focus. We can only get this through the centers of excellence. And we have started. All we need to do is to scale up. With the network grant we got from UKRI, we did a lot of exchange program, but the grant, for many of us, many centers, we've closed that grant. And the question now is, which way forward? So, if we can sustain the centers of excellence, most of the problem identified in the last 3 days will be resolved through our centers of excellence. That's what I see. That's the light that I see at the end of this dark tunnel. So that we don't enter the frustration mood that we've been trying this, it does not work. Let's look inward. That's why I asked the question in the morning. How did China get to this level of development? Outside this Science Direct, this journal, Scopius, how did they do it? Can we learn 1 or 2 things from China? Can we look inward, Africa, through this network, and really develop what we need to move forward. That they will solve our problem for us. No one will solve our problem for us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
It's been a very interesting 3 days, but I want to just lend my voice to the conversation. And my plea will be that, is it possible that when we imagine the future of Africa, we should have more young voices, not just at plenary session, but also at roundtable discussions? Because I know what I'm thinking, and it's different from what I've learned. And these are stages that have evolved over time. And then secondly, I also want to appreciate the Center of Housing, because through them, I had also been able to privileged to sit among great scholars and listening to this knowledge and impactful ideas. And the last thing is it possible also when bringing in young voices, because we realize that many of us don't know how to write, especially when it comes to grant, and knowledge is open to like the last echelons of knowledge to write for applications. And most times this information might be just at the grassroots, but they don't have the opportunity to do that because it has to be given to the most elderly or the most, someone who's been there for years. So it's just a plea. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Adeni Emmanuel, Association of Commonwealth Universities. I just wanted to write on what she just mentioned, to say that I think also of all the things that has been mentioned, I think there's also need for us to start thinking about intergenerational mentorship. There was a time that Egypt was a world power. There was a time that some of these African countries were really known to be world powers. But that's not the case right now, right? It means there was a generation that missed it. There was a generation that was not in touch. So in as much as we are making this progress, these pockets of progress, I think it's important that we need to start thinking about how we pass the batons, especially in these conversations, such that the young people are also keeping track of the progress that has been made. And so I just said that to support what she said. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just a reaction to that. The whole of today's sessions is devoted to young early career researchers. I hope you are aware of that. The whole day. So we brought to this event over 60 young people paid for. So it's not as if ARUA is not mindful of the youth and their future as researchers. ARUA has a clear program to train young early career researchers. And sometimes we will continue growing so long as the resources permit. Okay?
Thank you, Chair. Mine is just what I will call a deep introspection from what has happened in the last 3 days. A lot of concepts have been brought out, a lot of ideas have been thrown up, and a number of challenges. This is the 4th ARUA Biennial International Conference, and hopefully we'll be going to the 5th. This year, we are reimagining the future of higher education in Nigeria. In Africa. What worries me is what do we do with output that comes from all these intellectual cross-fertilization of ideas? I am looking forward to when the communique that will be coming from here will be looking like the future of higher education in Africa, a transition from rhetorics to reality. And therefore, the chair mentioned about evaluation, and that the team on evaluation are already around. I think that one of the ways of transiting from rhetorics to reality will be to look at the output that is coming from all the research centers of excellence and the research clusters. First and foremost, how do we communicate the output coming from those research in order to reach the appropriate audience? Secondly, how do you scale it up? Our session yesterday, most of the things being raised there, a number of innovations that are simple, rugged, lightweight, and that can also be utilized across most areas as well as the urban centers. In what ways are we harnessing what is coming from some of these research clusters and centers of excellence? Finally, in also moving from, transiting from rhetorics to realities, we may have to reimagine our engagement process with the policymakers, with the government, with the industry, especially what do they call them now? The medium-scale enterprises that we have across Africa, because most of what we do in Africa is more of the informal sector than the formal sector. Chairman, ending up again, reimagining the future of higher education in Africa. The communique should address transition from rhetorics to realities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Peter? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm fortunate enough to be employed by the university in the high north, close to the North Pole Circle, and a university in the far south, in Stellenbosch. 16 hours of travel, at least. Not very environmental friendly, but very worthwhile. And what we have in common, these two universities, is much more valuable and much more relevant than what might divide us. The same here at the campus of the University of Lagos. And one issue that connects us is that we know how to communicate. Whether you're from Oslo, from Stellenbosch, from Lagos, academics like to talk. They're very good at it. They like their debates. They like to communicate with each other through their academic publications. But we've not been very good. We've not become very good in communicating with society. We've employed in our universities people in communication offices, but usually they're very good at PR, but not in communicating. So that is one thing that Professor Aryeetey, Jan Palmowski, and I and others involved in the communications with the European Union, with other stakeholders, what we've learned is that we've got to adapt our way of communicating. We cannot come with questions. We cannot come with demands. But we have to identify and understand what it is that we have in common with the policymakers. And we found out what we have in common and where we have common interests that connect us. And that is what has contributed to the development of the joint idea of clusters of excellence, which create a unique, really a unique capacity, not just for collaboration, but also for addressing issues in society that are lying ahead of us. And from that perspective, also on the basis of what I've learned during this wonderful conference, I would like to add two important issues to the conversation that has taken place this afternoon and during the conference. And one is the demographic issue. All the predictions over the next 10, 15 years show that by 10 years from now, at least 40, if not 50% of all students in the whole world will come from Africa. And that is a reality. And from that perspective, what the universities in Africa are doing on their own campuses, in collaboration with other universities in their country, with stakeholders in society, with other universities on the continent, is not just of relevance for Africa, it's of relevance for the whole world. I mean, solving tomorrow's solutions, I mean, if half of the next generations of scholars in the world come from Africa, we're going to be relying on African scholars to a large extent to produce the kind of ideas and breakthroughs that can help us solve tomorrow's problems. And from that perspective, one of tomorrow's problems, climate change, that has been addressed in many ways during this conference, will also require us to look not only at artificial intelligence as a new technology, but at green technologies. The way in which we contribute to sustainability in society will, to a large extent, determine our place in society. So I had the pleasure of, together with Professor Osei, at being part of the session on the climate change and development session before this. And there, a number of key issues around sustainability and the university's role were addressed. And I hope that we can all contribute to this issue of sustainability, development of green technologies, developing technologies together with the communities that we are connected with, private sector, public sector, as well as policymakers and politicians. Because that is where, in the end, the understanding of our societal impact comes from. What will be our contribution to policy making? What will be our contribution to civil communities? What will be our contribution to the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Let me now come back to the panel and I get the closing thoughts on all the things that they've heard this evening. So let me start from the far end. Bola.
I think in summary.
If you can use the microphone.
Okay. I think in summary, we are looking to Africa to solve Africa's problems, and we are looking for our young ones to step up the more and be able to come in and do this for us. Thank you.
Margaret? No lamentations.
Where there's a will, there's a way. We can do it.
I think as Africans, we need to join hands and work together. We can do it together. If we separate, we will fall, each one away without knowing where we are. Okay, thank you.
So all the three presenters have been very quick, so they are forcing me to also be very quick with my comments. I think I just wanted to reflect on the point that Professor Champon made and re-echoed by Peter, that we as academics are probably not very good at communicating. Of course, we know that there is a lot of research that we are doing in higher education, and we don't know how to communicate it properly. But let me assure you that we are not starting from ground zero. Thank you very much.
This is the first time I've seen academics not using the microphone. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this final session. And it's really appropriate. Thank you very much. It's appropriate that we should thank the people that put it together. Let me thank the panel, especially Nelson, who at very, very short notice agreed to come and tell us about the wonderful things happening at Dar es Salaam. So thank you very much. I understand that the LOC wants to do something. And so the LOC will do what they have to say. And then I'll invite Madam Vice Chancellor to come and give us her closing remarks. Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Professor Grace Otiwa, team. Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay.
The General Secretary, Vice Chancellors, our dear Vice Chancellor, conference participants, it's indeed my pleasure at this time to invite our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Research to present and also recognize various sponsors who have supported the 4th Biennial Conference of ARUA. Professor Bola Oboh. Thank you.
First of all, we want to say a big appreciation to the ARUA board for deeming it fit for University of Lagos to host this conference. And the major sponsor of ARUA, Carnegie, towards this conference. We are very, very grateful for the support and all they have done to help us put this together. However, as a university, there are some people that have stood out and have assisted us and helped us to put this together. And so we will want to say a big thank you in our little way to each and every one of them. The first person I will call will be the ARUA Secretary-General. He has been here since Sunday, and Our postgraduate school, I don't know whether they are represented here. Postgraduate school, if they are not represented. Emma Smith Investment Limited, represented by Professor Akomo, please come forward. Howes Consulting Group, represented by Professor Amuda, please come forward. Access Bank, if you are here, please come forward. Zenith Bank, Dr. Okoye, to hold a brief for them. And the Unilag Business School. Please, if you are here. Thank you. So, please come forward. On behalf of the University of Lagos, we say thank you very much for your contributions to this conference. Thank you. Who is speaking? Professor Amuda, are you around? Thank you very much for all the support you gave to the conference. Thank you. Highly appreciated. Access Bank. University of Lagos Business School. Postgraduate School, University of Lagos School of Postgraduate Studies. Okay, we give it to them later. Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank, Dr. Okoye, are you taking on their behalf? We don't have the time. We don't have the time, please. Yeah. Please, on behalf of University of Lagos, say a big thank you to Zenith Bank for us. Thank you. Yeah. To all our other numerous sponsors, Afitech, IREX, ACEDAS, the Unilag Microfinance Bank, Unilag Consult, School of Foundation Studies, Joint University Plenary Examination Board, Builders Consulting, and individuals who chipped in one thing or the other, we say a very big thank you. Thank you. Vice Chancellor, over to you.
Before I invite the Vice Chancellor, I'm asked to inform you that we have an evaluation form. So the QR code there, you can scan it, and then please give us some feedback. We would like to know all the things that we did right and the things that we didn't do so right. So give us all a very frank, honest feedback from your time with us for the last 3 days. So thank you very, very much. Madam Vice Chancellor. When you finish, I will thank you. When you finish, I will thank you.
I think we can say that in the last few days we have been reimagining the future of tertiary education in Africa. And I think the things that came out of it was that we will get there if we work together, if we believe in ourselves, and if we harness the expertise in different countries. It has been a pleasure hosting all of you here, and we look forward to much more of this kind of intellectual discourse. I think everybody will agree that the quality of the discourse at this conference was extremely high. And it shows you what we can do when we need to do it. However, there's something that's come out. We're not very good at communicating what we do to the public and turning our thoughts and expertise into development. We need to work harder in that area. And I'm sure as we keep moving forward, leveraging each other's skills and expertise and strength, and working collaboratively rather than competing amongst ourselves, we will get there. Africa is rising, and Africa is the future. Thank you very much. One more thing. Sorry, I need to thank Professor Aryeetey and the LOC and everybody that made this work. I would love to say that it has been a pleasure working with this LOC, because all I needed to do was smile, look at them and say, is it being done? And they say, yes. And I say, good. And I go to sleep, and they don't. So for all of you that put this together and worked so hard, the protocol team, the LOC, and everybody that worked behind the scenes, the CITS, I just want to thank you very much. Thank you for projecting the best of the University of Lagos. Thank you, and we were very happy to host you. Thank you very much for being here. And Prof, God bless you. Thank you. Last thing, wish you all safe journey back home.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Professor Folashade Ogunshola. Before I came here, I used to say Professor Fola Sade Ogunsola. I've learned a lot. Before, I've seen that my team, they're also holding some bags. You want to do presentations? Bring them in, yeah. Why don't you speak?
Thank you very much, Secretary-General, Professor Ernest Aryeetey. We thought we'll also follow suit rather than wait to go to the cocktail area to do this. We'd like to do it publicly. We have 3 or 4 presentations to do, and the first, we've already done our first presentation to the Vice-Chancellor. Would like to do a presentation to Professor Bola, Professor Grace Otenwa. Please continue with applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair LOC, for accompanying us in this process. Thank you very much. The next is the Protocol Officer, Madame Latifa Adekola. If she's not here, we can ask somebody to pick it up for her on her behalf. Madame Latifa Adekola. Okay, whilst we wait for her. Okay. Okay. So the next, we have something from Ghana for members of the LOC. Something very, very modest. So we'll invite the chair to pick this up. Thank you so much, working with us day and night and always with a smile. Thank you, Madame Adekola. And for members of the LOC, something very modest from Ghana. All our presentations are very modest, but it's the thought that counts, not what you have in your bags. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella and team. It's now my pleasure, and also my duty, to thank the team for organizing this. I remember a little over a year ago, we had a meeting of the Deputy Vice Chancellors of ARUA in Accra, at Legon. And at that meeting, we're looking for a venue for the next conference. And Professor Sunday Adebisi, with that consulting his Vice Chancellor, immediately said, oh, we will do it. And then during the break, I heard him calling his Vice Chancellor in a very animated conversation, trying to convince the Vice Chancellor that he had already committed his university. So I guess the Vice Chancellor had no choice but to accept. And then soon after that, he was leaving office. And I was very, very pleased when, in the first meeting I had with him and the incoming Vice Chancellor, he mentioned that Lagos was going to host the next conference, and the incoming confirmed it. So that was extremely important for us. And today, we've seen how a very smooth transition and dedication to the cause has led to a very well-organized conference. So I thank the Vice Chancellor and her team for the commitment shown, the generosity shown, and the fact that they've been so welcoming, and everybody has attested to that. So thank you very much. I should also thank all of you. You've traveled from different corners of the world. Some of you have come from Argentina through South Africa. Some have come from Oslo. I've seen people from Brussels, from Ghana, from Wits, from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Wales, Mozambique, Rwanda. You know, you've come from all over, and I thank you very, very much for the show of love for ARUA, your interest in what ARUA does. I've heard many suggestions about what ARUA can do in the future, and we will definitely discuss these through discussions with the Deputy Vice Chancellors, with the Vice Chancellors, and hopefully in the next few years you begin to see a new ARUA. We have here evaluators, and I do hope that they've taken note of what has happened here, and I will let their report reflect truly what they have experienced. So I thank you all, and I wish you a very safe journey back home, whether your home is in Lagos or your home is in Ife or in Johannesburg. Thank you very much.
It's my chance.
So we have